The Cooler King, the ingenious tunnels, and that legendary motorcycle jump. The 1963 film, The Great Escape, is one of the most thrilling war movies ever made. But what if I told you the film left out the most incredible parts? The real Great Escape wasn't an American adventure story. It was a massive, international operation, masterminded not by Steve McQueen, but by a British lawyer named Roger Bushell. His real plan wasn't just to escape. It was to break out 250 men at once, an act of war designed to cripple the German war machine. And the real ending wasn't a triumphant leap. It was a cold-blooded tragedy that triggered one of the largest manhunts in history. This is the true, unfilmed story of Stalag Luft III. We'll uncover the real heroes, the ingenious unseen gadgets, and the shocking truth of what happened after the breakout. This is the real Great Escape.
To understand the escape, you must first understand the prison. In 1942, the German Luftwaffe built Stalag Luft III in what is today Poland. It was a special camp, built for one purpose: to hold the most difficult, stubborn, and escape-prone Allied Air Force officers. This was not a standard POW camp. It was a high-tech fortress, designed by the Germans with one single obsession: to stop tunnels. They built the barracks up on stilts, several feet off the ground. This meant any prisoner digging a tunnel entrance would be instantly spotted by the guards. They surrounded the compound with a double perimeter fence, with barbed wire tangles in between, and machine gun nests at every corner. But their most brilliant defense was the ground itself. The camp was built on fine, bright yellow sandy soil. This was a nightmare for two reasons. First, the sand was incredibly loose and prone to collapse. But second, its bright yellow color was instantly visible if a prisoner tried to dump it on the darker gray-brown surface soil. Patrolling the camp were the ferrets, German guards whose only job was to crawl under the barracks, listen for digging, and hunt for that telltale yellow sand. The Germans were confident. They believed Stalag Luft III was quite literally escape-proof.
The Germans had locked up the bad apples. What they had really done was put all of their best enemies in one room. The prisoners immediately began organizing, and their leader was a man the movie barely shows you. He was not an American. He was a South African-born, British naturalized barrister, squadron leader, Roger Bushell. Bushell was a force of nature. He had already escaped twice from other camps. After his second capture, he was interrogated by the Gestapo, who threatened to execute him. Bushell looked them in the eye and promised that if he was returned to a camp, he would unleash the biggest escape in history, designed to create mass chaos across the Reich. The Gestapo sent him to Stalag Luft III. Bushell, now known by the code name Big X, assembled the escape committee. His plan was not just to escape. His plan was an act of war. He didn't want 10 or 20 men to get out. He announced a plan that was so insane, so audacious, that his fellow prisoners were stunned. He wanted to break out 250 men, all at once, all in civilian clothes, with forged papers, money, and maps. His goal wasn't just freedom. It was to force the German High Command to pull hundreds of thousands of troops away from the front lines to hunt them down. It was as he called it, a slap in the face to the Third Reich.
The plan was simple. Not one tunnel, but 3. Their names were Tom, Dick, and Harry. This was a genius move. If the Germans found one tunnel, the prisoners would shrug, let them destroy it, and immediately shift all resources to the other 2. The scale of this operation is almost impossible to comprehend. This was an underground factory run by 600 prisoners. The ingenuity was breathtaking. To dig through the collapsing sand, they shored up the tunnels with over 4,000 wooden bedboards. How did they breathe 30 feet underground? A team of engineers built a massive, hand-cranked air conditioning pump from hockey sticks, old knapsacks, and milk tins, which pushed fresh air through a pipeline also made of milk tins. How did they see? They stole German wire and ran their own electrical lighting system, tapped directly from the prison's own power grid. How did they move? They built a tiny rope-hauled trolley system that could move men and sand along the 300-foot-long tunnel. And the sand, that bright yellow sand, they had to dispose of 130 tons of it. Men called penguins would fill long, thin bags, put them inside their trousers, and walk around a compound, releasing the sand from a pin at the bottom of their pants, scattering it in the gardens or vegetable patches. Meanwhile, other departments were in full swing. A forgery department, led by a man who had been a printer, was creating flawless fake German identity papers. A tailoring department was re-dyeing and re-stitching uniforms into convincing civilian suits. A map department was creating hundreds of detailed maps of the European railway system. This was not a simple escape. This was the creation of a secret underground army.
This is where the true story and the Hollywood legend violently diverge. Lie number 1. The American Heroes. The 1963 film, starring Americans like Steve McQueen and James Garner, makes it seem like an American-led operation. This is the biggest lie of all. The real Great Escape was overwhelmingly a British and Commonwealth affair. Of the 76 men who escaped, there were 47 British, 6 Canadians, 6 Poles, 4 Australians, 3 South Africans, and only 3 Americans. In fact, most of the American prisoners had been moved to a different compound months before the escape even happened. Lie number 2. The motorcycle. The most famous scene in the movie. Steve McQueen, the Cooler King, stealing a German motorcycle and making that legendary jump over the fence. It never happened. Not even close. It was put in the movie for one reason. Steve McQueen was the biggest star in the world, and he loved motorcycles. The real escapees traveled on foot and by train in total secrecy. Lie number 3. The adventure. The movie portrays the escape as a thrilling, almost fun adventure. The reality was grim. The prisoners were malnourished. They were digging in claustrophobic, dark, damp conditions for over a year. They lived under the constant terrifying threat of a tunnel collapse or of being caught and executed by the Gestapo. This was not a game. It was a desperate, high-stakes operation.
On the night of March 24th, 1944, the escape began. They chose Harry as the tunnel, and immediately it went wrong. The tunnel, which was supposed to surface inside the forest, came up 20 feet short in the open snow, right in view of a guard tower. This was a disaster. Instead of the planned 250 men, They could only get men out one at a time, in agonizingly slow intervals. In the end, only 76 men made it out before a guard on patrol finally spotted the 77th man emerging from the hole. But they were out. 76 men, fanned out across Germany. Roger Bushell's plan had worked. The alarm was sounded. The Reich went into a panic. The Gestapo and the SS were furious. An enraged Adolf Hitler was awakened, and in a fit of pure blind rage, he gave a direct, illegal order. All recaptured prisoners are to be shot. His commanders, fearing a diplomatic incident, convinced him to modify the order. Hitler decreed that at least half of the escaped prisoners were to be executed. Of the 76 men, only 3 of them made it to safety. 2 Norwegians made it to neutral Sweden, and a Dutchman made it to Spain. The other 73 were recaptured. And then Hitler's order was carried out. 50 of the recaptured men, including the mastermind Roger Bushell, were not returned to the camp. They were taken in small groups into the woods by the Gestapo, told they were stretching their legs, and were murdered, executed, shot in the back of the head. This was the true end of the Great Escape. Not a motorcycle jump, but a cold-blooded war crime.
So, was it a failure? 73 of 76 were caught. 50 were murdered. By any measure, it was a catastrophic loss of life. But here is the final, powerful truth. It was a success. Roger Bushell's real goal was never just to get men home. It was to disrupt the German war machine. And he succeeded beyond his wildest dreams. In the weeks following the escape, it is estimated that nearly 500,000 German troops, Gestapo agents, and local police were pulled away from their duties on the front lines, all to hunt for 76 escaped POWs. It was one of the single greatest disruptions of the German homeland in the entire war. Bushell and his 49 comrades paid the ultimate price. But they died knowing they had won. They had proven that even behind barbed wire, 30 feet underground, they were not prisoners. They were soldiers. And they had struck one of the most brilliant and most costly blows of the war.
The real story of the Great Escape is more complex, more tragic, and ultimately more heroic than any movie could ever capture. It wasn't about the thrill of the escape. It was about the cost of the duty. What part of the true story did you find the most unbelievable? Let us know in the comments. And if you want to uncover more of the real, hidden stories of war, subscribe to Prisoner of War. Thank you for watching.